All right, so here we are. In previous weeks, we had talked about the restrictions moving between Max for Live and standalone Max with our ambisonics patches. We identified a solution for outputting audio, at least in a binaural setting, using the Waves NX plugins last week that works in both Max and Max for Live. But to this point, the main issue of having multiple input sources, i.e. multiple different samples or something that you're panning around your ambisonic landscape, the trick was that could be achieved in Max by using the SF Play object, and you could have multiple inputs into your ambient code object in Max. But getting multiple sources of audio from different tracks to be those inputs into the ambient code was difficult, if not impossible, like without using something like loopback or something like that, until now. So now what we're going to do is fully, and I mean fully, integrate the work of your ambi patches in standalone Max into a framework that will allow you to use it in Max for Live and use Ableton for what it's good for, which is loading, triggering, and managing sample playback and sequencing. I think everyone should be pretty excited by that, because it means we can really fully integrate our Ableton workflow into this ambisonic context. All right, so here we go. We're going to, again, I'm going to go down to my downloads folder where I have the audio routes package decompressed. We're going to be focusing on the preset Max for Live device called audio routing example. Let's start by opening that onto any track. And then we're going to open it in the Max editor. And then we're going to start by making a copy of it. All right, so here it is. Double click to make it fit in your screen. We can't save as yet because due to the implementation of good or best practice here, the people who made this have frozen the device before they sent it out to share with anyone else. If we unfreeze it, and then now we can go to the file menu, save as, and we are going to save this into our normal Max audio effects, Max audio effects folder on our computer in our system, and we're going to rename this BSP153 audio routing hack, or audio routing ambisonic hack, or something like that, or just ambisonic. Yeah, I'm going to do hack, or just week 10, but this is a much more descriptive name. So now we've got a copy of this, so if we stuff anything up, we can come back and analyze the original. And now it's going to be saved into that folder on our computer as well, so it should be easy to find for you in live. Save. Now, we are actually using that saved as version now, because you can see it reflected in the name. So, but let's just double check. I'm going to close this device. Close that. Now, instead of looking in my downloads folder, I'm going to go to my Max for Live, Max Audio Effects, scroll down and find BSP Audio Routing Ambisonic Hack. There it is. Okay, we're ready to go. So maybe just to illustrate some stuff, we might need some audio sources. So let's do that. So we've got something to illustrate with. Maybe the easiest thing to use is a software instrument. Again, just playing a lovely single note there. And if we remember, let's move this kind of to the right. And let's employ some of the practices we've seen in those preset examples by naming whatever the track is, the audio or MIDI track that has our audio routing ambisonic hack Max for Live device on it. Let's rename that the router or something to that effect. I'm just going to increase my buffer size because from memory I think it's crazy low. There it is. That should help us a little bit. Okay, so this is our router, and this is our, I liked the idea of calling these source 1. Cool. And let's just ditch these for now. So now we've got our source, we've got our router, and we're going to send these audio to a return track in live. So we're going to repurpose these return tracks. And let's just try that as an example by deleting the effects that are on them from the template. And we are going to call this, let's just call this 1 and 2 because it's a stereo output 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now, in the real world, we would, instead of routing these to the master output, we would be routing these to an external output using an interface that had up to at least 8 individual outputs which we could connect to 8 individual speakers in a room, and we'd send this to speaker number 1, send this to speaker number 2. But for now, we're just going to set it all to the master so you can just see that it's working. We could also just send these to send only, but I might show you why we do that later. All right, so our source is definitely going to be set to send only because we don't want to hear it coming out of this channel. We only want to hear it via the router. So if I play this clip now, we can see this channel is generating signal, but we can't hear it. We're going to use the router to send it to one of these 2 speaker outputs here, in theory. So for the first input on our Max for Live device that we're hacking, we need to select where our first signal is going to come from. I'm going to select track name source 1, and there it is. And it's that simple at the moment, and you can see. Now, I think we will probably remove the implementation of this router here because I don't think we're going to use it. So let's just, to simplify matters, let's take a look at this. And also, before I do that as well, also note that the audio is coming out of the plugin or this Max for Live device, which is interesting, seeing as we haven't selected any outputs here. So it's going from the source into this router and then going via this plugin. There must be some kind of through happening here to the master. Now we could fix that by setting this also to sends only, and I'll show you why. Let's actually, before I edit anything, let's just keep looking here. Currently, we can see that this the input signal is being routed via the matrix. Input 1 is being routed to output 1, and we can see it here. It's metering, but output 1 has no output assigned. Because we're using these return tracks, yeah, there's a few ways around this, but let's just follow this one to its logical conclusion and see how we go. We're going to output, send the output here or assign it to this track here. There we go. So now we can see instantly that the signal is flowing to here. We've got a doubling in volume because now we're hearing it out of the return track, which is going to the master, as well as this. We could now set this to sends only, and now it is only going to here. So we can see if we mute that, the audio is being routed to here and then to the master. We just can't hear it because it's muted. If we changed this, the signal from output 1, we could select a different track or a different return, and in 3 and 4, and now it's going there. Again, this is very new, this ability to route audio like this from a Max for Live device in Ableton. So this is very new. So hopefully this is kind of making sense here. Have a bit of a play and a think. Back to 1, and just to complete the idea in this scenario, let's make 2 more returns. I think it's Shift Command Option T. No, it's just Command Option T. I'm going to rename this one 3, 4. So this would be 5, 6. And this would be 7, 8. Or even to simplify it, we could just think of this as like speaker 1, even though there's stereo pairs. We'll address that later. But output 2, output 3. We could even write output. That might make things nice and clear. Output. Command A, copy. Here we go. Rename output 2. And then rename output 3. And this one, output 4. Cool. Back to our router. So we can see now if we can set this to output 1. This might be an obvious way to do it. Output 2, output 3, output 4. And if I turn off these other sources as they're not being used, and then we move the input 1 through the different outputs, it's now getting sent to output 2, or the second pair of outputs, which is routed to here, and then here, and then here. Cool. Like I said, we're not actually going to be using these too much, in my opinion. So let's continue on. And I'm going to stop the video there, actually. So kind of get to that stage, wrap your head around that, make that happen, and I'll see you in the next video.